Boehner calls it a deal with the devil. That's how he describes the Obama administration's nuclear deal with Iran. And Republicans warn that the president is playing politics with Cuba. They took it off the terrorist watch list, but they say Cuba still supports terrorism, even if the president claims it doesn't.
Congress will get the chance to weigh in on both Iran and Cuba. And as Caitlin Burke reports, the president is facing a great deal of criticism over his foreign policy.
It's a major step toward a more normal relationship with Cuba. After 3 decades, President Obama advising Congress that he plans to take Cuba off the state sponsor of terrorism list, a list that's associated them with countries like Syria, Sudan, and Iran. Republicans quick to condemn the move, saying the government still oppresses its people and supports terrorist activities.
This is a country that helped North Korea evade UN sanctions as recently as a year ago. This is a country that continues to harbor fugitives of American justice. This is a country that routinely undermines the national security of this country by its active espionage against us.
Removing Cuba from the terror list will likely make it easier for the communist government to get credit from non-U.S. banks, transfer funds between countries, and conduct other international transactions. In another foreign policy move, President Obama is bowing to pressure from lawmakers, agreeing to a compromise that gives Congress the ability to reject his nuclear deal with Iran.
I believe Congress should play a role in ensuring that all the details that need to be in place are there, and that on behalf of the American people, before the congressionally mandated sanctions are lifted, that we on their behalf ensure that this is something that holds Iran accountable, is enforceable, and certainly is very transparent.
House Speaker John Boehner, an outspoken critic of President Obama's plan to negotiate with Iran, said Tuesday, quote, "I don't know how you cut a deal with the devil and think the devil is going to keep his end of the deal." Republicans and other critics say that the Obama administration is getting nothing in return for its outreach to Cuba. And on Iran, despite criticism from Congress, they say that Obama is likely to get his way as long as he has enough Democrats supporting him. Caitlin Burke, CBN News.
Ladies and gentlemen, you know, let's face it, we have a government that was set up by some very wise men. They formed a constitution. It was hard fought, worked over. But the deal is this. You have a government that's in 3 parts, but the most important part is the Congress, which represents the people. The laws are to be passed by the Congress. Treaties are to be ratified by the Senate. All right. The president has got to faithfully execute the laws passed by Congress and execute under the Constitution, defend and obey the Constitution. Obama has decided that he doesn't need the Congress and ignores the courts, makes fun of the other branches of government, and thinks that he somehow is the Messiah and can go any way he wants to. That was never the way our government was intended to function. Now, this is a slight concession, but not much of a concession in terms of this terrible deal with Iran. But to think that the Iranians are calling that we're the great Satan and that we must be destroyed and Israel must be destroyed, and then we're going to sit down, as Boehner said, you're going to make a deal with the devil, and the devil has already told you he's going to take advantage of you once he's made the deal. And they have said, no way are you going to come into our military bases and examine whether or not we've got nuclear material ready for bombs. You're not going to do it. We're not going to let you get into our country. Well, if you can't do that kind of inspection, then those safeguards are nullified. But Obama just goes ahead and does this because that's what he thinks is right. Well, we didn't intend to have a dictator. And it's time we take our country back. Well, our closest ally has been shunned by the president and snubbed by the president. But Israel is deeply concerned about the nuclear deal with Iran. And 2 members of Congress found out about that firsthand in a recent visit to the Jewish state. John Jessup has more on that story from our news bureau in Washington. Here's John.
Pat, as you just mentioned, for decades the U.S. has been Israel's closest ally, but could that be changing in the shadow of the Iran controversy? On a recent visit to the Middle East, U.S. congressmen said they're troubled by the direction of the relationship between the U.S. and Israel. Chris Mitchell brings us that story from Jerusalem.
Israel and the United States have enjoyed a very close relationship going back to the creation of the Jewish state. Even friendships go through rough patches, and that's happened the past few months regarding Iran. In a region where radical Islam looks to seize power from longtime dictators, Israel is the sole democracy. On the front lines of the war against terrorism, it's also a leader in the world of high-tech and medical advances.
I'm concerned that we as Americans don't truly appreciate or understand, and therefore don't appreciate, how significant Israel is not only to our survival as a country, but also to the survival of the free world, especially here in the Mideast.
During a trip to Israel, U.S. Congressmen Dennis Ross and Robert Pittenger visited Judea and Samaria to learn more about how the country protects its people and way of life.
They have been our surrogate fighting the terrorists. We've helped contribute to the Iron Dome, which is a missile defense system that they've developed.
Their comments come at a time of unprecedented friction between U.S. and Israeli leadership over the issue of a nuclear Iran.
The Prime Minister is the Winston Churchill of our era, and regrettably, President Obama is the Neville Chamberlain. He doesn't see the facts. He doesn't see the issues.
Pittenger said he was disturbed that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu appeared unsure of U.S. help in their time of trouble.
Frankly, I asked the Prime Minister, at such time that you believe that you will need America, will you believe America will be there for you? And the best answer he could give me was, I hope so.
Other longtime U.S. allies like Egypt, Jordan, and the United Arab Emirates are looking to Israel for help in fighting radical Islamic groups.
Who came in to help Egypt? It wasn't us, it was Israel. Israel has been the best partner that President Sisi has had to defeat the Muslim Brotherhood. Israel has as well been given significant strategic assistance to Jordan.
The congressman also agreed the U.S. could learn a lot from Israel.
We don't understand what a resilient country that this is. Under enormous pressure and challenge from its borders, in the midst of that, they're one of the strongest entrepreneurial economies in the world.
We can learn a lot about not only their commitment with the young people going into the IDF and having public service, we can learn a lot from their opportunities for economic development, we can learn a lot from their agricultural skills that they've honed and turned a desert into a very vibrant and successful agricultural arena.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Pat, no doubt the relationship has seen brighter days.
Well, it has, but I tell you, the Muslim Brotherhood isn't some benign organization. They formed the PLO, which is a radical organization with Yasser Arafat. They formed Hamas. They formed Hezbollah. These organizations were all Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood has one goal, and that is the radicalization of the world. Their guide is the Quran, and Allah is their king, and they're going to wage jihad. Now, Muslim Brotherhood members right now are sitting in councils in the White House of the United States giving advice on foreign policy to none other than President Obama. And I think the time has come that we start demanding that our president identify our friends and identify our enemies, and don't mix the two up. John?
Here at home, Congress heard about the persecution of Christians in the Islamic country of Pakistan. Advocates for religious freedom talked about Pakistan's history of Christian discrimination and persecution, where a strict blasphemy law is in place. That law carries a penalty ranging from fines to death and targets mostly non-Muslim religious minorities.
Just survey the headlines for the last couple years. Innocents charged with blasphemy, Christian couple beaten and then burned alive after being thrown into a brick furnace. Christians, including a mother of 5, Asia Bibi, are currently sitting on death row for allegedly committing the crime of blasphemy, and another 33 are in prison for the same.
Good morning.
Thank you.
King and others believe the Obama administration should apply pressure on the Pakistani government, which they say largely has ignored the issue. Well, it's tax day, and the 2014 tax year marks the first time American taxpayers will get a glimpse of exactly how much Obamacare will cost them. It starts with some new questions about your health care on the tax forms. And as Charlene Aaron reports, 1 out of every 4 Americans could face fines if they don't yet have health insurance.
According to the IRS, around 75% of taxpayers will check a box indicating they have health coverage from their employer or another source. But for the 25% of Americans covered by Obamacare or not covered at all, it won't be quite as simple. For those who purchased government-backed health care and received a tax credit to help pay for it, that credit will have to be reconciled with either taxes owed or a refund.
People who don't have coverage are going to be paying penalties. People who received coverage through the exchange and a credit are going to have to reconcile the credit they received.
For American taxpayers who are still uninsured, this year they will be charged a penalty of $95 or 1% of their household income, whichever number is higher.
The average penalty has been coming out at about $177 this year. Most important thing to remember about penalties is they're going up for 2015 and they're going to go up again in 2016.
However, there are about 30 exemptions that can help lower or completely eliminate any penalties. They generally fall into 3 categories: personal, financial, and medical. The number 1 exemption: people who are not required to file a return for 2014.
If you are not otherwise required to file a tax return for 2014, you're not required to pay the penalty.
If you haven't signed up for health care yet and want to avoid the penalty, the federal government has extended the window to register until April 30th. Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
Obamacare has also helped make the overall tax code even more complicated. The tax code cost the economy $234 billion due to $6 billion lost hours of productivity, according to an analysis from the National Taxpayers Union Foundation. The report also says things could get even worse because of 3,300 new pages of legal guidance for Obamacare. The foundation says Obamacare is inflicting new burdens on taxpayers, and this is bound to increase the burdens of tax complexity more than what has already been observed. Well, if you want to keep your brain healthy as you get older, try exercise, along with cutting back on your chances for serious health problems like heart disease and high blood pressure. That's not only good for the body, but good for the mind, according to a report from the Institute of Health. Health Day reports experts also recommend getting enough sleep, along with keeping your mind active and having an active, good social life. Pat, I'm sure you ticked off every item on that list because you're the picture of good health.
Well, I don't know. It's staying here on this TV show that does it. That's when they do a daily TV show and read the news and stay up with what's going on in the world. That doesn't keep you. And also, phosphatidylserine. Just mark that down. That'll keep your brain going.
Well, you pumped some iron.
Oh, yeah, I pumped a lot of iron in my earlier days. I was pumping some, you know, I used to do leg presses, and I got so I could warm up at 500 pounds, and then I would regularly do about 30 of with 1,000 pounds.
Oh, my goodness.
Of leg press. But
wow.
That's a long time ago.
Well, I know you still lift some weights because you said the other day you were lifting.
Yeah,
or you do at the Total Gym.
Well, I do the Total Gym. Well, I've got a weight bar in my attic. I have all kinds of stuff. I've got all kinds of weights. I've got weights that go up to 80 pounds for dumbbells, and you know, I do dumbbells and
the older we get, the more important it is.
Well, they say it is. I don't know, but I've oh dear. But riding horses is really better. The horse does the work, and you can sit there and get the benefit.